Hi, I'm Demi Stevens, founder and CEO of Year of the Book Press and editor-in-chief of Self Pub Magazine. And I'm just filled with spirit to be here in the studio today with author Jennifer Foxworthy. Welcome.
Thank you, Demi. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, I know that you have a message that really needs to get out there because there's so many people in my own life who've gone through something maybe not similar, but they have doubts buried in them. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about what you've been through.
Well, I am a domestic violence thriver.
Thriver, not a survivor.
Not a survivor. There's a difference.
Thriving.
You got to thrive. You have to find purpose from the pain. And that could mean from any traumatic experience. Mine happens to be domestic violence. And people say, well, you may wear this like a badge of honor. Well, there's many that don't survive. So yes, I'm grateful to be alive. But I experienced mine when I was in the service. I'm a United States combat veteran.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. 21 years I served my country honorably.
You don't look old enough to serve 21 years.
Yes. Yeah, I retired April 2013.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So I thought domestic violence was something that would never happen to me. And because it takes courage I was in 3 wars. Flying on airplanes and everything else. So
takes courage just to get out of bed and face the mess hall food, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I thought, I'm too courageous.
I'm just flabbergasted about the idea of abuse. I usually typically think about it as the mousy young housewife, not in the military.
Yes, and that's just a stigma on domestic violence. I thought domestic violence happened to weak minority women, and that it was physical. But I found out through my situation it's more than physical. It's economical.
What other things
sexual.
Economical.
Economical. The abuser can hold money so from the victim, where I'll give you $20, you go get groceries, nothing more. Or where the victim has to tiptoe, and even if they have a job, but they're putting their paycheck, giving it all to the abuser, and the abuser goes and drinks alcohol or drugs, spends it frivolously. So there's economic abuse, there's sexual abuse, psychological, emotional, elderly or young. Domestic violence reaches far and wide. There is no one immune to domestic violence. So when it happened to me, and I'm in this stereotype mindset of, minority, weak women, physical, I didn't understand the signs. The warning signs were there somewhat in the beginning.
To even recognize that you yourself were becoming a victim.
Absolutely. I was in denial, and I was naive. And the first abuse that happened from my ex-boyfriend, he punched me in my stomach.
Wow.
When I thought that I could possibly be pregnant.
Oh.
And yes, he came over. I was late on my cycle, and I was like, okay, it happened less than 6 months of us dating. So he came over. We were going to have dinner, and I told him, thinking we'll figure this out together. I don't know if I am, but hey, this. FYI, the possible situation. And without warning, he hauled off and punched me in my stomach. And that set the scene. Without warning. And he was a service member. Yes.
What are some of the additional challenges that you have to work through when it is service member on service member?
For a female, the military is a male-dominated industry, so we're already having to overcompensate to show that we belong. And then with myself, I was in an elite group, a naval air crewman. So, which is not that many women in this elite group and not that many African Americans or minorities in this elite group.
Okay.
So your naval air crewman is like a step below your Navy SEALs.
Wow. So the only way you want to distinguish yourself is in service and honor, not by...
Absolutely. So I was facing a professional war of trying to fit in and show the good old boys that I have trained and I belong and I can do the job, because we're flying in airplanes.
Sure.
And I was in 3 wars. And at any time, our plane could get shot down. We find ourselves behind enemy lines. And I tell people I was better prepared to be a prisoner of war than I was to deal with domestic violence.
Well, they're both prisoners.
But I was better trained, had more training dealing in that elite community than grabbing hold of what domestic violence is and the signs and the resources and how to get out of it. But a lot of it was denial and then holding on to hope, because the relationship wasn't all bad. We had some great times. So the victim, we hold on to those good times.
And that's what gets you through the hardest point.
Absolutely.
Well, so much of it feels we're afraid to air out our dirty laundry. I mean, I'm not hanging out my dirties right here.
Yes.
But you've gone out on a limb now. You've put your story into print and you're delivering a message to other people. What's that like to wake up in the morning and know you're going to speak to someone about the parts that most of us try to keep hidden?
I think that's the great part of being a thriver, because once you talk about it, that's where the healing begins. It's awareness. So that's why I say there's a difference. The survivor, they haven't made that transition into feeling comfortable.
But you feel like people who are still that's it's like a spectrum on a journey.
You're
or
being
something?
judged. You open yourself up, unfortunately, to be judged. But I think about the lives that are being inspired and saved. That's what means the most to me. Can someone, by sharing my story, can someone say, hey, I'm not alone. There's no reason to feel shame.
Step right in. So then through then sharing their stories, they could get farther on the path toward where you're at now.
Absolutely. And go from victim to survivor to thriver. That the hitting, the psychological warfare, the emotional, your damaged goods, nobody's going to want you, all the things that an abuser tells you, and then, oh, let's have make-up sex because I'm sorry and I didn't mean that, and hey, think of the children. All those things come into play. So I want to provide hope, and in this book, Tomorrow My Sunshine Will Come, there's 6 different stories that will give a perspective and provide that inspiration and hope.
Wow. So in addition to the books, what were some of the resources that helped you step out? Is there anything you'd recommend to folks? I know we want to let us know about your website.
My website is www.inspirationallyspeaking.com, and that's inspirationally spelled with 2 L's. Inspirationallyspeaking.com.
Inspirationally spelling too.
That's right. That's how you spell it. I am a motivational speaker, author, blogger. The resources that I leaned on were actual stories, and then the national website, and then even when I interview or send a proposal, I want to know what the state agency, what is their take on domestic violence, how do they define it, and I think that's mainly the biggest thing. Everyone needs to know, what is the definition of domestic violence? And I did not have that early in my childhood. It's like domestic violence, sexual assault, rape. Those are dirty little secrets that nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah, I see the poster on the inside of the door at a women's event or something, but I don't understand what it means.
Exactly. So to
even say that might be me.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. To break down in layman's terms, what is it? What does it look like? What does it feel like? You can get that sense more when someone is sharing their story, when you see it in print, when you hear it. Oh my goodness, that's what I'm dealing with. Wow, I didn't realize it.
I went to the GYN. I'm putting out my dirties now. and the nurse asked, do you feel safe in your home?
Yes.
And I just looked at her. Huh? I thought we were here for the... I didn't understand what she meant. Mm-hmm. I think that you're right. That personal story would help me to understand.
Doctors are finding covert ways, because normally when we go to a doctor to get our annual checkups, our male partner
not in the room with us.
Not exactly. Or maybe they're sitting right next to us. But if the question is covertly on the form, do you feel safe? Then the victim can nonchalantly check yes. So when she gets called back into the room, then it can be discussed more to get help, have that conversation.
Wow. Are there support groups that women and men who are in this situation could connect with to be able to hear that personal story?
Most agencies, every state, just about every state, to include probably Puerto Rico, has a state agency. So Pennsylvania has, I think, Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence. I live in Southern Maryland, so it's Maryland Network Against Domestic Violence. Every state has its agency. I would encourage everyone to check out their website. They give tips on, even from the loved one's perspective who's on the outside looking in, how do you deal with it? They won't leave even though you're encouraging, hey, you better leave or you're going to die. Why won't they leave? It gives those helpful tips. It gives helpful tips to the victim of use a public computer when doing research. Put a few dollars away, maybe in a safe deposit box or a P.O. box or just somewhere. Don't divulge your safety information with everyone, because not everyone in your circle can be trusted. The abuser may have a way to get to them, or you may jeopardize their safety. Put some clothing aside, so basically start planning your escape. So those agencies are really good for that type of stuff. Then you have your crisis centers that are in majority of your cities, and they have support groups. They also have hotlines that you can call up and say, hey, I'm in this.
I am.
I had a young lady reach out. I have my own television show, Living Unshackled on Purpose. And I had a young lady reach out through the network that my show is on. I called her. She's in North Carolina. She was looking for a one-way bus ticket to another state. But she didn't have the money, and the friend that she was staying with didn't get paid until the following week. What do you do? She was away from her abuser momentarily, but it won't last. Most crisis centers or shelters are full. That's how much domestic violence is reaching. They're full. They don't have enough beds or resources. In order to get the funds to get that one-way bus ticket, you have to be a part of the program. So I called up that hotline and asked, I said, well, she's just looking for a one-way bus ticket. Is there any other financial resources out there? And they gave me the number to a program called Community Link. Now this was for this particular city and state. If the lady had ID and contacted them, they would purchase the bus ticket for her.
Wow.
So there is...
You made that connection.
Absolutely. All through my TV show, through the broadcasting network and everything.
Tell us more about how that television show, because you're obviously a great personality, how the camera loves you and I love you. How did that all manifest for you, and how does that help you reach more people with your message?
As a motivational speaker, I knew that I don't just speak on domestic violence. I speak on self-esteem, being a minority woman in the military, inspirational. I have about 6 or 7 topics. I even have an Unstoppable You workshop. So I'm all about empowering women. My target audience is mostly women and youth. But I'm willing to speak to whomever who needs that empowerment and inspiration.
When and where does the show air?
It airs every other, the second Friday of every month. So it comes on television, like DirecTV, KUHN, Armstrong, Comcast, a lot of your major television.
That's so exciting.
It's
terrifying.
I never
probably.
would have imagined. If you would have told me, Jennifer, after your ordeal, you'll have a published book, a television show, I would have laughed at you. Because I'm like, there's no way. I consider heaven sent. That, again, is purpose from the pain. That because I'm sharing, people are catching on, and they see that this is a horrible epidemic that needs to be addressed. And they find that I'm credible, and that the way I bring it forth is soothing. And people can see the passion. And I really am passionate. I really want people to be their best. And above all, to know that they are fearfully and wonderfully made. So Living Unshackled on Purpose is my show under the Gospel for You network. That's based out of Carlisle. And it's under the WGCB broadcasting system.
Okay.
If you can't see the TV channels, I always have the episodes on my website.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
So there's about 4 episodes. But to make a long story short, I try to provide a 360-degree perspective on domestic violence. So I just don't want to interview your survivors and thrivers. I want to interview the politicians who make it their business to pass the laws and who are champions on domestic violence. I want to interview your prosecutors who are sending the abusers to jail and working on behalf of the victim. I want to interview the family members who've tragically lost loved ones and are able to speak and share that story. I want to interview your clinical therapists who are in the support groups, helping the victim, the survivor, rebuild themselves. I even want to speak to the abusers who have transformed themselves back into being better.
Because that's a journey
people.
As well.
Absolutely. There is hope for the abuser. There is hope. To me, in my mind, I think it's through Jesus Christ, our Savior. I am a Christian and believer. But there may be many other ways for the abuser to change. So there's hope for everyone, but they have to be willing to see things for what it is. An abuser, they don't want to admit. They want that power and control, but they think, oh, you made me do this. So there's a generational curse to all of this, and it's a matter of exposing that elephant in the middle of the room and addressing it.
Put it in a tutu.
Absolutely.
Can't miss that elephant.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that dirty little secret.
That's a whole other video.
There
Jennifer.
you go. That's true. Okay. So I might have went too far there, but yes.
No, but
yes.
A big shout out to you. If you're sitting at home today watching us and you or someone you know could potentially be interviewed by Jennifer, I think it's a wonderful way to share that message, to reach out, to help someone else be able to step from victim to survivor.
To thriver.
To thriver.
Absolutely. Always, you can email me at jennifer@inspirationallyspeaking.com. Again,
2 L's.
That's right, 2 L's. My website is www.inspirationallyspeaking.com. My Facebook, business Facebook page is Inspirationally Speaking, LLC. So I have Twitter. So I'm all over the place. Or you just Google Jennifer Foxworthy.
Exactly. Well, I'm just so glad you took the time out of your busy day to come be with us today. And we're looking forward to seeing you at York Book Expo.
Yes, ma'am. Woo, woo.
Woo!